Good evening, everybody. This is another episode of the SLTD Going Over Big Time podcast. Once again, I am the Fantastic, joined by my good friend Mike, and we're here to talk about the state of women's wrestling, actually. So, we are recording on the eve of a WrestleMania weekend, but just in the past couple of days alone, there's been a lot of movement in the rosters of like respect the main companies like WWE, AEW, for example. And Mike, you and I did this similar podcast about a year ago, kind of just
Uh,
like
August we did it.
August. Was it August? Yeah, okay. August.
Yeah.
Last August, we talked about sort of like where the state of women's wrestling was going. At the time, there seemed to be things were kind of stagnant, I guess, not really going anywhere.
Yeah.
It seems to have changed dramatically since then.
On
Obviously, like
all fronts.
on all fronts, yeah.
I would say that uh in WWE and AEW specifically, there has been big seismic changes. Um, and it's very evident, I think. Of course, there's still some issues in both companies in this department, but I would say that there's been more positive than negative most recently.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little worried around the beginning when it was like Charlotte Flair had an injury back at, I think was it at the Royal Rumble or did she miss the Rumble because of the injury? I couldn't remember.
Um, I believe it was before the
I think
Rumble.
she
I think
was
it was
in the Rum. Oh,
December.
yeah. So yeah, Charlotte Flair she sustained an ACL injury. I think that was what it was. But even there, she seems to be recovering much faster than everybody else than than they would have predicted in the regular time frame. We also had Sonya Deville, unfortunately sidelined it with an injury. Um, and that was unfortunate because she had at that point recently won the tag team titles with Chelsea Green, and that would have been a very interesting combo on television.
Yeah. So, Charlotte tore her ACL, MCL, and meniscus during a December match on SmackDown.
Okay, so she did miss the Rumble, unfortunately.
Yes.
Um, but it seems that even with that, things have kind of really picked up. You and I think, felt when Rhea became the women's world champion last year
Mm-hmm.
that you know the reign at the beginning was very mediocre. Not because of anything she did. She was a very dominant champion overall, but it was like the challengers that were lined up were sort of like you wouldn't expect it to have won. Natalia got several title shots, I think. You had Liv Morgan, and then she was sidelined by an injury.
Yeah.
The most memorable title defense I had of Rhea was in Puerto Rico last year when she faced off against local girl Selena Vega. So,
Yeah.
but
So I think a lot of this came down to Rhea was injured a lot, and she was really slated into the manager role a lot alongside Judgment Day for that reason. And if there was just nobody on Raw at the time that was being built up as credible challengers. Um, it was very slim pickings for her, but she continued to have this amazing performance on the character side. And then when she finally was defending the title, the matches were all great. Um, her match with Nia Jax in Australia was actually really good, despite. And I have said this in the past, not on record, but I have said this in the past that Nia Jax's run most recently has been her best run ever because she is doing exactly what she's supposed to do, which is come in like a monster and put people over when she's supposed to. And she hasn't had any bad moments in the ring. It comes down to the same thing that people always say about Dominic, which is, you know, exploit the positives. And I feel like they've been doing that with her. Um, the what was it? The five-way match that she had with Zoe, Shayna. Who else was in that match?
With Raquel,
Raquel, and
and I
one
think
other.
not. I think Nia was in that one too, wasn't she?
Nia was in that one also.
Yeah,
That match
that
was.
was that was fun. That was a fun match. It kind of gave a sense that there was some vulnerability for Rhea there because you're facing like four women who are actually legitimately very credible challengers all at the same
Yeah,
time. When you have a mix like that, you basically have a five-way scramble. A lot of unpredictability can happen.
yeah. I think that Rhea has turned into probably the biggest star in the entire women's roster as far as like current crop of talent goes. I mean, like, and Becky being like the biggest star, probably one of the biggest stars on the entire roster in general, not just the women. Rhea is like right alongside her, which I think is very fitting as to why they are facing each other at Mania.
Hmm. Yeah, and on some other fronts, I think they've managed to like uh fill out some of the missing, or at least utilize talent when they weren't really central to the Rhea Ripley storyline. I look at Becky Lynch, for example. Becky's currently going to be facing Rhea at WrestleMania for the women's title, but before that, they had to do an NXT run where I feel like they kind of like completed a circle where they gave Becky a run as the NXT Women's Champion.
Mm-hmm.
Now that that means the famed four horsewomen all each have become the NXT Women's Champion.
Yep.
And they didn't have her like hang on to the title very long. She did her thing and passed the torch appropriately to the next person, Lyra Valkyria. At the
Mm-hmm.
same time, also elevating newer talent like Tiffany Stratton, who really improved her game while she was NXT Women's Champion, and now she is on the SmackDown roster. And
And
you know,
getting great reactions.
yeah, yeah.
She was in the Elimination Chamber at Elimination Chamber, and she got one of the biggest pops out of everybody in the match. Um, and people were getting behind her very strongly there, and that has continued on SmackDown for the most part. To the point where there was reports for a while that there was consideration of her having a singles match with Bianca at Mania. Of course, that changed. Um, but she's on the upward trajectory for sure. She's going to be a great talent for years to come. She's still very young. She's only like 24, I think. So she's got a lot of time to improve and wrestle for as long as she wants and improve in the ring. Um, but there's a lot of talent like her that are coming up. I think, and we've talked about like these people in the past, but like Zoe Stark is really good and hasn't really gotten her time to shine. She was in that Trish Stratus thing for a while, and then that resulted in nothing. They just put her with Shayna, and that also resulted in nothing.
I'm
Um,
surprised those two have been kept together on screen for as long as they have. Shayna had already. With all due respect, Shayna's done the tag title run before, a tag team run before. She did it with Nia Jax. That team eventually imploded. There were
she was she was with Natty for like a minute.
yeah, okay, and then so
Rhonda,
yeah, and Ronda, yeah, like that was probably the best tag run that she could have mustered out of that, and
yeah,
yeah, and that ended appropriately with Ronda leaving and her kind of taking over the dominant spot as the MMA woman.
yes,
Yeah. Shayna is, of course, a very interesting position right now because she is scheduled to be in the GCW Josh Barnett versus Bloodsport 10, I believe it is.
Yes.
Uh, very unprecedented, almost historic first the first time ever I've heard of a contracted WWE wrestler
Hmm.
on an independent show and being promoted as such. Um,
Absolutely, and it's a very big deal for Shayna to have that position, considering her history with Josh Barnett, both being Billy Robinson products and coming up training together in MMA. Josh Barnett asked for her specifically for that reason. He went directly to Triple H and asked if she could be on it, considering as it looks, she's not going to have a Mania match.
yeah,
Um, so I think that's really cool, and she's going up against one of the best wrestlers in the world, Masha Slamovich, who has been killing it on the Indies and Impact for the past 2-3 years. She's a former GCW champion. She has great matches with everybody, including men. And yeah, I'm actually really excited to see this match because, as far as I know, they've never faced each other. And Bloodsport is that middle ground between MMA and wrestling, but done correctly. And
it's the Raw Underground that was done properly.
yes, and I've seen pretty much most of the Bloodsport shows. I think the only one I didn't see was the one that was presented by Matt Riddle, which was the very first one. Um, but everyone that I've seen, I've enjoyed from top to bottom. And you always see a lot of great catch wrestling or MMA guys or girls doing it. Marina Shafir is always on it. Um, I'm trying to think of Kota Ibushi did it last year. Mike Bailey's always on it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's very. I'm very excited for that match. That's one of the matches I'm most excited about for the entire weekend. Well, that match is actually taking place on Thursday afternoon, so I will have to watch it when I get home from work. Because that show starts at 4 p.m. on Thursday. Um, but yeah, and just going off of what we were talking about, that got us onto that topic. There's a lot of talent on the WWE side that have bright futures, and one of them is somebody that has been there for a few months now and is finally on TV more regularly, and it was one of their biggest signings ever, Jade Cargill.
Yeah, Jade has been signed for months. She was heavily promoted as a new signee by WWE once it was confirmed. She retained her name, Jade Cargill, of course.
Yeah.
Retained her music, her character. That is a
So she owns all of that. I mean,
owns all
Jade,
of that. Yeah, it's all owned. It's like Cody coming in with his own music from downstate, and also in a sense almost Sean Spears, who returned to NXT.
yes.
They tweaked his character a little bit, but he's essentially retained his whole character. So Jade had been signed for months. They
Since
teased her
September, I think. Since
yeah,
September.
and they had her appear sporadically here, looking as though she's like being scouted or being courted by various brands, all three brands. Um, she finally made her first sort of in-ring appearance at the Royal Rumble. Um, Made
Yeah.
an incredible um, debut, tossing Nia Jax on her own over the rope uh,
Yes.
by herself. And so, as of recently, just last week, as of this recording on SmackDown, Jade made her debut. She finally signed to SmackDown. Personally, I think she would have made a more interesting addition on Raw. Maybe to continue the thing with Nia Jax, but
Mm-hmm.
so they had her come out and just kind of stake her claim and that sort of thing. Um, and there was a very powerful image I thought at the end of SmackDown last week where Bianca and Naomi were out there getting kind of like gang ganged up by Damage Control with Dakota Kai, Asuka, and Kairi Sane, and then Jade comes out, walks out very slowly, wasn't like rushing the ring. She gets
Hmm.
in there, whooping everybody's butt. She hits Kyrie with the jaded finisher for some odd reason, acting as though there was a referee in the ring, so pinning
Well,
her because it was a free.
she was just
But
doing
anyway,
her
yeah,
signature.
doing a
Her
signature thing because I know now that
yeah,
I think about it, yeah, because that's the thing that she's known. One of the things
yeah,
that she's known for, and then SmackDown ends with Jade, Bianca, and Naomi standing there in the middle of the ring.
side by side,
Yeah, it's side by side. There was a picture of them pointing upwards. I guess they were pointing at the WrestleMania
pointing
sign.
at the WrestleMania sign, and
So there
that's
is
when
now
they
a women's tag match signed. The three of them versus the other members of Damage Control, minus EO. Um, I guess for those who like had never seen, for lack of a better term, three strong black women end off an episode of SmackDown. There you go.
that's never happened before.
Yeah, no, I mean
That
we
was a
talked about yeah.
first time thing that people were very happy to see, and are very happy to see this match happening for that reason. And good for them. I think that it'll come off well because you couldn't have Jade in a singles match in her first Mania because she was not ready for that stage at this point. She has to get more acclimated to the WWE style of the ring, which I don't think she'll have an issue doing. It's just that when she was in AEW, she was always on Rampage, which is taped.
Mhm.
So she never really had a lot of live matches. So, and whenever she did, you could tell that she still needed some work. So I think whatever she still needs to work on will be masked in this because she's not going to be working the entire match.
That's true. And pairing her with two like established veterans across the ring from
Professionals, professionals.
professionals, established professionals, as well as three others across the ring is a good way to like help her break in. I mean, also in storyline terms, there was no real opponent that was facing again across from her that would warrant a
Yeah,
one-on-one match at this point.
and
Like the
there
thing,
was speculation for a while because I think people were pretty much of the opinion in December that Charlotte was going to face Bianca at WrestleMania, whether it was for a title or not. And now that Charlotte is not cleared since December, they needed to do something big for Bianca that wasn't a title match, right? And Naomi just came back in January, and it would feel wrong, I think, on many levels to make it such a big deal to have her come back and then not have her on Mania. So there was speculation for a while that maybe they'll do a tag title match, and then this past week's SmackDown was completely dedicated to Jade. Like the
mm,
whole show was built around her, and um, the 6 woman tag was pretty much speculated for a while after she had signed to SmackDown officially. And I think that I mean I don't like that the tag titles aren't being defended, but um that that is one of the things that they need to continue to work on because as we talked about in the past, there's a lot of tag teams. They doesn't
surprisingly, yes, because in the past we already discussed about how women's tag divisions always have like if you put in tag titles, the only teams available are either the champions themselves and then like one other team. And now
yes.
it's kind of expanded to at least three or four credible teams out there. As we mentioned before, you had Shayna and Zoe Stark. Sure. You still have, I think, Chelsea and Piper around. Casey and
Yes,
Kaden,
Piper is hurt. Piper
Anna.
is hurt right now.
Oh, okay. So never mind them. But yeah,
Yep.
Katana and Case and oh, her name escapes me at the moment. Katana Chance and her partner. Oh my god, I
Caden
can't believe
Carter.
it. Hayden
Caden
Carter, that's right.
Carter.
Hayden Carter,
Yeah.
the EDM girls. Okay. Um.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Also, the former team known as the Way, but now Candace and Indy. Candace
Hmm.
is kind of flipped around and just started doing this heel bit where it's like she is. It was a
Yeah.
very strange scene. I guess I would say. I guess you could count in the Alpha Academy girls and like Ivy Nile and
Yeah. I mean, they're technically a
Maxine.
team. They are technically a team, I think,
Yeah.
and Maxine still has a ways to go, considering that she kind of skipped NXT altogether
Right.
and didn't really work matches there.
Yeah,
Um,
so I was very interested in how they kind of parlayed some of the negative fan reaction Maxine was getting at live shows, even though she was like visibly improving.
mhm.
And their idea was to, hey, can we get Candace to just completely flip out and like yell about her dead brother or something like that? I'm like,
Berate her.
berate her or like, are you seriously trying to do a worm on me on indie right now? Are you freaking kidding me? And it's like you just
I
basically did a
mean,
whole scared straight bit on front on her, and it's like,
yeah,
wow. The fact that they brought up like one of her deceased brother, I was just like,
yeah.
they must have had to clear that with like 3, 4 different people,
Of
but
of course.
that was that was something different.
So yeah, I mean, there's tag teams. They are just not putting the emphasis on the division that we
Right.
had hoped they would by now. I hope that changes, but we say that a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and I hope that this isn't leading to an Indy and Candice breakup because they're a good team. Um, I mean, Indy should just be a heel also. She's been a heel before. What like I get it, um but yeah, and again, all of these people, I mean, other than Maxine, who of course still needs work, all of these people are pretty good in the ring and have the ability to carry a tag team division. And of course, you could just put Natty with anybody. I mean, I think she's technically still teaming with Tegan right now, but you
Mhm.
wouldn't know because they're never on TV.
Well, hopefully the new platform WWE Speed will give them some much needed
I
3-minute ring time.
I think that's a men's thing
Ah,
only.
really? Well,
Yes.
maybe they can have women's matches, but that doesn't hurt. I mean, if this Speed Championship is only for men, but I don't know this concept. Anyway, I'm
Yeah. No,
thinking
no, no.
we could
We'll
talk about
get it.
that
We'll
completely.
get
Talk about
into that another time.
yeah,
But
yeah. We could devote like a mini episode just on that whole concept alone. Um,
um, but yeah,
but I
and then you have Bailey,
oh yes,
and
yes.
so Bailey and Io has been one of the best stories on all of WWE TV. Um, because they turned it into, I think, what we kind of expected it to be, which was uh Bailey only started Damage Control for herself
Hmm.
to have backup, and Io was sick of that to the point where she got Asuka and Kyrie to join the group without consulting Bailey,
Yeah.
and that resulted in them turning on her and that great angle that they did when they eventually did turn on her, and Bailey chose her for the WrestleMania match. And there's been a lot of talk online, obviously, about what should be the main event of WrestleMania. Of course, it's always gonna be this bloodline stuff. But I would put an argument out there that I think there should always be a Royal Rumble winner in a main event. Um, I just think that that's fair. Um, Usually, I mean, it used to be you win the Royal Rumble, you get the main event for the world title, right? Now it's you win the Royal Rumble and you could face the champion on any point in WrestleMania, and it doesn't matter. I mean, the year that Alberto Del Rio won the Royal Rumble, he was the first match on the card. So it doesn't matter really, but I would argue that the women deserve that. Um, And people would say from a story perspective that Becky and Rhea should probably be the main event over that match, but I disagree. Um, and last year, Charlotte and Rhea thought they should be a main event, and they went out there and had one of the best matches on the entire show to prove that they deserved it. So I have a feeling that we'll probably get that from both women's championship matches at WrestleMania, because both matches on paper look to be two of the best matches they could have put together for the show.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, that the main event of each night of WrestleMania should include like a Royal Rumble winner from, yeah, like whatever brand, doesn't matter where it comes from. Uh, the whole Bailey storyline definitely unfolded the way it should have. Uh, I think the best part was the part where they were in the ring, and then Bailey was like started talking, and then she spelled a few words in Japanese, and then at that point we are like, oh shit, she heard what they were saying, she understood what they were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, the part of the lead pipe, that was just genius. That was kind of feeding into like Bailey being like two steps ahead of her opponents, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I don't know where to. I mean, it's actually like I've been juggling back and forth. Like I don't think I even know who would really come out on top of this. Whether Bailey will regain the women's WWE women's title or EO retain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at this point, like I mean, I don't mind if EO dropped it to Bailey at this moment because I think Bailey deserves like a WrestleMania moment after
I
being
agree.
being relegated to like her hosting duties a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that it's just Bailey is now kind of like just by herself again, and
Mm-hmm.
with obviously what one of her best friends signing over on AEW, then there's no natural backup for her. I mean, they had like Naomi saying that she kind of feels sorry for her, but frankly, at this point, I still see Naomi wrapped up in some future bloodline stuff, and so she might be not available.
I mean, that's very possible, but they could also just keep her away from that entirely. Um,
That would be true. That could be a thing. I mean, if this thing with Bianca and Jade is becoming more of a thing going forward, that would be interesting to see.
yeah. So I would say on the WWE side, you have a lot of potential, a lot of star power, and a lot of opportunities to make more stars. You just have to find the time to do it, right? And the problem is that on SmackDown, I think on SmackDown more than Raw, SmackDown is lucky to get 2 minutes for a women's match, especially when there's bloodline segments.
Yeah, it seems really I have admittedly not watched as much Raw on SmackDown in the last couple of weeks. I'm kind of just waiting for WrestleMania to be
Yeah,
over and done with, and hopefully just reset this whole thing and like finally get a new champion, and we can finally start a new set of things to pay
yeah.
attention
It
to.
well,
But I
it
mean, honestly, dude, the last SmackDown from this past week, one of the more memorable, I guess, segments involving women was a backstage altercation between Isla Dawn and Alba Fire with Nick Aldis talking about them changing up their music or their entrances, and the
mhm,
internet losing their minds over the fact that it looked like from some weird angle Nick Aldis was staring at Isla Dawn's chest and like,
mhm.
okay, whatever. I mean, this thing was, I mean, if they're talking about them changing their character and that's all the time they can get on a show in the backstage segment, I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah,
and then
either.
you have like Tiffany winning 2 minute matches, and that really don't mean anything. And um all of the storylines are being centered around one match at WrestleMania, or in this case, two matches that are connected, one storyline. And there's a lot of time on both of these shows to do more with the women. Um, and there's a lot of, again, as we mentioned, a lot of talent. You just mentioned Isla Dawn and Alba Fire, who are two great talents who were just sitting there for months and doing nothing when you could have had them in the tag team division from the beginning.
It was so odd. They had them. I think it was during a one of those gimmick matches, Trick or Street Fight, or some. I can't remember. Maybe it was one of those
Uh-huh.
Thanksgiving holiday matches. They were hiding in like a giant gift box or something, trying to ambush Damage Control, Oscar and Kyrie. They basically chased off Oscar and Kyrie, and they didn't really do anything with them afterwards.
No.
So that was
And
confusing.
they did the while this is a while now, but they did the whole unification with
Yeah.
Ron Shayna, and then they just disappeared. And it was so weird. And again, those are two talents that you should be showcasing. So again, there is a lot of positive that is going on right now, but there's still things obviously that need to be worked on. The length of matches, the absence of storylines, and I think that's going to change after Mania. At least I would hope. With Vince not being around, I think there's going to be more emphasis on the in between times because there's always been that stigma in WWE where if you're not building to the Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, WrestleMania, or Money in the Bank, that every show in between is just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And that's got to change.
Yeah. I mean, I know you don't watch it that much, but even in NXT, there is like some very good prospects. I mean, Roxanne Perez, who came in as this like happy baby face, has now kind of like, remember when she had that split with Cora Jade that made absolutely no sense? And now
Yes.
it's almost like
After
Cora's,
they won a belt.
yeah, Cora got injured, and now so they need a new kind of bad bitch on the show. So basically,
Mm-hmm.
Roxanne got changed into a heel, and then I was joking to you. I was like, oh, well, maybe I was just joking on social media, like, oh, I guess her and Cora can be friends again now that she's also a bad person. But
Oh,
yeah,
but it was the fans' fault that she always lost big matches. It was the fans' fault that she had a nervous breakdown against Meiko Satomura. It it, it was I hate those kinds of storylines because they are so overplayed. They they don't know what they're doing with her as a babyface, and because Corey Jade is gone and they needed another heel, they just
mm,
decided, oh, let's do this. That was in my with for lack of a better term, stupid. And
yeah. I mean, some of the storylines they had down there were kind of like makes me wonder, huh? I mean, before she was called up on the main roster, Tiffany Stratton's last storyline was her losing to Fallon Henley in a match, and as a result, she had to become Fallon's stable person for a day, where she had to like clean the horses and like pick up
for
horse crap and like,
for one
and then
episode, and then she was on SmackDown.
yeah, it was like, okay, so who ended up the winner here? It was just kind of odd.
Yeah,
What other stuff were they doing? They did a lot of stuff with this Thea Hale in Chase University. She was apparently friends
this
with
is
JC Jane for a while, and then
this is
JC.
exactly why I don't watch NXT. This is exactly why.
I think the only thing appealing to me about NXT lately is Sean Spears being on there and the D'Angelo family.
Uh huh.
I got a thing for like Italian mafia stereotypes. So I'm like, oh, this is kind of funny to watch. But it's like,
The guy from New York
yeah,
that sounds like he's
yeah,
from Chicago.
right. But unfortunately, in terms
Yeah.
of what we're talking about women, it seems that unfortunately NXT has suffered a lot of like injuries or recurring injuries. We mentioned Cora Jade. I think she just recovered from injury, came back, and now she's injured again. Um,
Torn ACL, going to be
yeah,
gone for like at least 9 months
yeah.
again.
One of my favorites for obvious reasons, Nikita Lyons was like sidelined it for several months, up to a year, and then she came back, and then she injured herself again. So, like, I don't want to speak ill of like people's like work ethic
Uh-huh.
or anything, but it's like, are they not just, maybe there's just something they're not teaching them properly how to handle themselves, and they just keep getting.
Yeah, I don't know because freak accidents like that always happen. And again, this is something we've talked about before. Freak injuries like that always happen on the simplest things. You see, I mean, I watch GCW more frequently than you, and I see more people get injured just doing a tie up than anything I've seen in GCW, and that's true.
Yeah.
Um, so it's I don't know if it's a fundamentals thing. I don't know if it's just bad luck. I don't know because Nikita has great potential. Again, she's one of those talents who has it all. Um, the thing I don't like that they do in NXT is they always overemphasize one specific thing. And her one specific thing is that she has a big ass.
Well, in her defense, it's kind of hard to ignore. It's like the thing that it's like there, and I mean her
Yes.
moves and her finisher is like emphasizes those things. Um,
Yes.
I mean,
Um
she also knows how to use nunchucks, as far as I can tell, but they
She
haven't
has
really
like a karate background,
that sort of stuff.
a
But
fighting background.
so does this other girl, Carmen Petrovic, and
Uh-huh.
that doesn't make her unique anymore. And
No. No, it doesn't.
yeah, it just seems like NXT's women's locker room is just filled with a whole bunch of people we don't know, but they're training to become the next thing. They're trying to train them to become basically the next Tiffany Stratton, or
Yes.
next Cora
Well,
Jade, or next
I
Roxanne.
know I know who I love in NXT, and that's Sol Ruka. Sol
Right.
Ruka absolutely rules. She's
Yeah.
one of the best workers that I've ever seen down there. Every time I see her in a match, she absolutely kills it. And I'm excited for her to get a considerable run and do something. And I mean, I hope that she can stay healthy and continue to improve because she is very good.
Yep. Do you want to move on to AEW, about the women's roster?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
yes. So
Yeah.
AEW for a long time there was kind of a black cloud over the women's division, because it was always the same thing. It was either they would get one match at like 9:30 on Dynamite, or they would get a main event but no promo at all. And that seems to have changed. And I don't want to say that this is the reason, but I have to believe it's a big deciding factor, and that is the signing of Mercedes Moné. Of course, they brought in that woman who used to work in WWE, whose name is escaping me right now, Jen Pepperman or something, who is a producer who is very close with Mercedes. And a lot of people believe she was brought in for that reason. Um, and ever since Mercedes has appeared, of course, there's no confirmation on any front except that she is cleared at all, other than that she's gotten physical at least a couple of times. But since she's appeared, she hasn't had a match. And as of right now, there's no sign of when that's going to happen. Um, it appears that they're going right into her working with Willow again, because as we have talked about in the past, of course, they had the New Japan tournament that featured Stephanie Vakir, who is the current New Japan Strong Women's Champion. I believe who was the other girl? There was a girl from Stardom in there too, whose name is escaping me. Um, and Mercedes and Willow. And of course, the finals was Mercedes versus Willow, and this is where Mercedes suffered her freak injury, where she shattered her ankle, and had been out since. Um, there was speculation for a while that she was going to be appearing sometime before when she did. Um, conflicting reports of her working uh, Battle in the Valley again, or and then those reports claiming that she wouldn't be working Battle in the Valley if she couldn't work Wrestle Kingdom. Um, and then speculation of her going to AEW for a while was out there, and then it died down. And then speculation of her going back to WWE was out there, and that died down. And then out of nowhere, reports came out end of December, early January, or probably like mid January, because people were still thinking she was going to be in the Rumble, that talks had picked up considerably with AEW. And then they announced big business, and there was all those clues out there. It was in Boston. They had the
Very obvious clues. It was like no mistaking what they were talking about.
yeah, they had the graphic that said Boss Ton, and the Boston had two S's and they were dollar signs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so we all pretty much expected it to happen, and it finally did on that day, on March 13th. And out of all of the big signings that AEW has had this year, that one has had the most fanfare because of how it was treated. It was basically treated the same way as when CM Punk was brought in. They didn't tell you that she was going to be there, but they dropped enough clues to make it known that she would be there. And then she started the show. She had a hell of a promo, and this and I hate to say that the only reason that AEW's women's division is picking up is because of this. I don't think that's the reason. I think it's a factor, but because they were getting a lot better even before she showed up. Um, so I'm hoping that we'll get some news of when she's going to wrestle for the first time, and when she's going to finally have her first AEW match, um, and who that will be against. I mean, we speculated for a while that that was going to be Serena Deeb, because Serena Deeb was going out on Collision and saying that she would challenge anybody who wanted to come into AEW, and she used those specific words, come into AEW. And she was calling herself the final boss at the time. She isn't doing that anymore for obvious reasons.
One of the unfortunate downsides of the words "final boss" not being trademarked or copyrighted by anybody.
Yes, but it's not like she was the first person to use it in this year alone. But yeah. So Mercedes being there is a huge deal. When Mercedes finally has a match, that is going to be a huge deal. And having people like Statlander and Willow, who she's already worked with, and Julia and Sky Blue around that only elevates all four of them. Julia's already a champion, but being in the ring with somebody like Mercedes, who people will argue that is one of the best women's wrestlers in the world, and I think that is a valid argument, um, is only going to elevate everybody. And there's no sign of when we're going to see Britt Baker again, but that's a ready-made feud right there for her. Um, the biggest women women's star that AEW has built against the biggest women's star that they have signed. Um, if it were up to me, I would say that should be a double or nothing match. But it may be too early to say that. And yeah, you have all of this talent that is just getting better and better every single time. And there hasn't really been a lot of people that has come into the AEW women's division that isn't either proven or is going in the that isn't going in the right direction, right? Um, you got a lot of established talent there. You got somebody like a Lady Frost who's been showing up a lot and having great matches. Mariah May coming in and being this great character alongside Tony Storm, which we will talk about in a minute. And her ability in the ring has only improved. Only being in the wrestling business for a year plus and
Yeah,
having that time in stardom where she had the best first couple of months anybody could have as a wrestler.
yeah. I also want to bring up Queen Amanada.
Yep.
Was once a staple of AEW Dark and Dark Elevation.
Mm-hmm.
She's in the finals for the Ring of Honor Women's World Television Championship facing Billy Starks at Supercard of Honor. So
Yes.
very like interesting story about her. If she wins, she would likely be a history making first ever women's champion of her background to uh I guess win a title at a pay-per-view of this
Is she
kind.
Nigerian?
I am believe so. I actually she's actually from her, she's actually from Guinea. I think Guinea is yeah, it's a West Africa, I think. So
Uh,
sort of where Kofi Kingston is built from.
Ghana.
Ghana. I think it's pronounced
Ghana,
Ghana.
Ghana or Guyana, one or
Guy
the
I
other.
think it's Guy I, yeah, it's Guinea. So
I think that's Guyana.
Guyana, yeah. Yeah. Very interesting person. Speaks like four languages. Um,
Ghanea. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
It
but
is
yeah, she was
spelled
on the
weird, but
independent circuit for a while, but made her debut in AEW / Ring of Honor in 2021. Went from
sorry about our
Yeah.
pronunciation
Please,
of your country.
apologies in advance to every single thing we may have messed
I know that
butchered over there.
Guinea and Guyana, I think, are two different places, so I
Yeah.
don't want to get those confused. I am so
Don't
I'm.
don't please don't please don't cancel us or anything like that. Humblest of apologies. But yeah,
um,
she's gone from just the like the quote unquote job performer to being in the finals for a title. That's incredible. So I mean,
and even her
and,
and
and
her
not to take anything away from Billy Starks as well. I mean,
yeah, that I was gonna
yeah,
say.
yeah,
Billy Starks is what, only 21 and has been wrestling for 5 years already and is one of the best talents that they have.
yeah,
And I was shocked that she didn't defeat Athena. And I mean, I guess there was some sort of plan going into place for Athena now that she's going into this match with Hikaru Shida.
yes.
Um,
So yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. Yeah.
Athena has been consistently the best women's wrestler on the entire roster.
Yeah, and yet
And
she has not been on AEW television in like the longest I can remember. I don't know
uh,
how they even
since they did the Owen Hart qualifiers, where
yeah,
she
it's like I don't even know how they managed that. I mean, all the stuff she was doing with like Billy and the whole minion stuff and like minion training. I mean, this was like
yeah,
television old, and yet they just kept it on a streaming platform that wasn't live. It was like I
and
can understand.
we were all certain that she was going to be Billy Starks was going to be the one to beat her because of the way they built this story and the way that it was going for all that time. It was the best. I thought it was the best possible conclusion to that story, but
Yeah,
I guess I was wrong, and that's fine. Um, but I think that whoever wins this TV title is going to be um it could go either way,
yeah,
honestly, because you'll have the first African born AEW champion, or you'll have the youngest women's champion in company history. Um so either way, you're getting something that's never happened in AEW. Um so I think there's nothing but a win there on either side. Um I would say that they still they still have to delineate, and this, I mean, this is a whole roster thing and not just a women's thing, but delineate who is exclusive to ROH and who isn't. And this is happening with the women also. So it's like, because Amanada will just appear on Dynamite sometimes, or just appear on Rampage sometimes, or just appear on Collision sometimes for no reason. And
yeah.
usually,
It's like Ring of Honor at this point is basically Tony Khan's like dumping area for, and I don't say that in a negative context. I just, for lack of a better term,
yes,
where like, he's got his AEW roster of over 100 people, and it's like, okay, whoever we're not able to use on our main shows, let's just put them in Ring of Honor. Hence why Sheeta's on Ring of Honor, and it's actually, it was a good fit to put her as the opponent to Athena for the
well,
Ring of Honor
and
Women's World Title.
yes, because they have a huge independent history working in Shimmer
Mm.
and teaming together and acknowledging that history. And I think Hikaru Shida has a big chance of being the one to defeat Athena for that reason. Um, where does Athena go from there is the question. Um, I think it's time for her to put a ROH behind her after this. I feel like she's done everything she can on the ROH brand. It's time for her to move forward and move upward. It's time for her to finally get the recognition she deserves on Dynamite or on Collision. And I would love to see her against Tony Storm one day. I would love to see her against Thunder Rosa one day. I would love to see her against anybody that's on the roster. Um, because she is one of the best women's wrestlers in the world today. And only getting to show that on ROH, which is on a streaming service that only 100,000 people are watching, if that,
Yeah,
is crazy.
we can devote another episode to discuss how we think Tony should restructure his programming schedule, and
Of course,
he should really plan something ahead of um WWE moving all their shows over to Netflix as of next year.
I agree.
Frankly, you know,
I agree wholeheartedly. And
yeah,
yeah, and then you have
we talked about before about him just eliminating a whole show entirely and just slotting in Ring of Honor as its
yes, of
replacement.
course.
But anyway,
And then you have on a whole nother spectrum the Tony Storm character, which has been one of the greatest things that AEW has ever done at all in the history of the company. This character that she has molded into this actress who is like beyond her years, but she herself is not even 30, or she just turned 30 or something. She's around that age. But besides the point, the character is just this like
This like
old timey
dejected,
actress.
old timey villain from the 1950s, Marilyn, some dejected Marilyn Monroe character that is just such a throwback to like a time that has like our grandfather is no longer like it's a time when our like
Yeah,
grandparents remember, but
it's like an ode to like the Mae Young, early Mae Young character
yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
and like when Mae Young was first coming up into wrestling, and like when I don't know if you ever watched the show Feud, but like a Betty Davis type character,
Okay, okay.
like I can't even like put into words how much I love this character. Now,
And
the thing that I dislike about it is that it is hindering her wrestling. And we know that she's a great wrestler, but she's overemphasizing the character right now, which is fine. And like her match with Diana, for example, and Diana's another name, one of the best women's wrestlers in the world. Her match with Diana could have been the Tony Storm of old and the Diana of now just having an amazing match. And of course, there was overbooking shenanigans. And that's what you get with this Tony Storm character. I guess you have to take the good with the bad.
yeah, I will say, yeah, so the wrestling might be not as high quality that we would know of Tony Storm, the original version. But yeah, as you said, the character has been just this amazing performance. You know, I sometimes listen to Chris Jericho's podcast, and in my memory, he's done only very few interviews where his interviewee is like stays in character. The ones I remember was when he interviewed Broken Matt, uh, MJF
Mm,
2 times, I
yeah.
think. Um, one when he was just interviewing him for the first time, one and the other one when he was interviewing him as his like best friend and tag team partner. Don Callis and Kakeshita. Well, Don Callis was more in character, obviously, and Tony Storm. She did the one in when Jericho interviewed Timeless Tony Storm. It was like just this master class performance and just her just saying all these absolutely insane things about Luther having a ingrown toenail that was actually like a
Hmm.
yes, he's very it pains him from every day, but he's so devoted to me. He will just do whatever I
Yes.
say. It was
And
just like
she's making all these innuendos about wanting to kiss people and wanting to do this to them, and like she said something to Diana that I can't like that was hilarious, but I can't even remember off the top of my head. Um but yeah, and like just this last week, like Mariah May was announced as being in the number one contenders match because she's ranked number two, and she got all excited and she kissed Mariah May on the lips, and she basically said, "Oh, you know what this means?" And Tony Storm was like, well, "What does it mean?" She's and she didn't even say what it meant. It's just I think she just expects that Tony Storm will win and just lay down for her, which is hilarious. But I fully expect Thunder Rosa to win, to have the pay per view match at Dynasty. Tony Storm will probably retain, um, because I think down the line you will get that Mariah May match. We've talked about this in the past. Mariah May is doing this storyline where she's like the crazed fan, and eventually she's going to get sick of it and turn on her. Um, or Tony's going to get sick of her and turn on her. Either way, it has to be building to that at some point. Who beats Tony Storm for this belt? I have no idea. But everything that she's been doing has been great. And again, if it comes to like a hindrance to the wrestling just a little, that's fine because everything she's doing has been great. Um, I'm very happy that Diana is there. I'm very happy that there's just a lot of good going on there. But again, there's still a lot that needs to be changed. Not every women's match needs to be at 9:30 on Wednesday. or at 9:30 on Saturday. And sometimes Collision has two women's matches, but not all the time. Dynamite never has two women's matches. That's not really like where we should be beyond that. And I don't know if it's because Tony Khan doesn't have a woman executive in his ear helping him with that. And I think maybe that woman that we spoke about that was brought in specifically for Mercedes is helping with that in some way, I would hope. Um, but yeah, we should be beyond the one women's match at 9:30 thing. And that's still a thing that happens all the time.
Yeah, it's been a very like standard playbook, like to have one women's match or like around like a later half of the show, because they're all, both their shows are 2 hours except Rampage, and even on Rampage, there's like they have a women's match at like it's always in the middle to like
Yeah.
almost at the end.
Hmm.
Um, we haven't seen any women's matches. Well, with the exception of I think Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa in that insane St. Patrick's Day Texas death match or whatever. I think that was that main event
The
at one
the
Dynamite.
the best women's match in AEW history.
Right, yeah, that one. Other than that, but yeah, it's like the role model needs to return and grace us with a presence to save this division. I mean, to be fair, Britt left because she wanted to let others see if they can run with it. And to be
Yes,
fair, some of them have obviously, like Julia
of
Hart,
course.
but
Yes.
it's time for yeah,
And I think we're finally gonna get to like a Statlander heel turn at some point. We're finally going to get to Willow showing more of an edge, I think. And these are I mean Willow's been in multiple street fights. I don't know if she has to have an edge it's per se, but um in the character, more so in just her matches. Um Willow's actually been in more street fights than any woman on the roster. Um which is crazy to think, but and like they just recently had that really good one with her and Statlander against Julia and
yeah,
Scott.
the basically the street fight.
When they tested the waters and had a 3-hour show.
Oh yeah, that was the
uh
one when they taped Rampage right after the Dynamite. I was like,
yes,
"Oh,
it
this
was the
works. Okay, yeah. Why don't just leave it? Why don't you just leave it like this, and then just like leave your Fridays open for anything else? Like
well,
just move Collision to
I
there, and
mean,
then
this is a whole nother topic for a whole nother
yeah.
time, but
Anyway,
people
but
but yes, that match was great. And that is what we need to see more of. We need to see more emphasis on those matches meaning more. We need to see them in a more compelling spot on the card and not just at 9:30. There needs to be more than one women's match on a pay-per-view. I mean, every once in a while they'll have two, but you're lucky to have three, and the pay-per-views are like 6 hours long.
yeah. Anyway, lots of improvement, lots of
Yeah,
room to grow in
of
terms of
course.
AEW's women's roster. Um, I want to like I guess if unless you have anything else to add, I want to move into like TNA.
Sure.
I feel like there was also some hits and misses with TNA lately since they relaunched the brand. Obviously, the most stunning thing that happened with TNA in the last few months was the firing of Scott D'Amore in if I could diverge from our topic a little bit, in an absolute almost succession like power play that kind of unfolded where the more tried to buy TNA and Anthem was just not having any of it and just fired his ass on the spot, which launched a whole like almost backlash from their own roster. I think they've managed to like calm the waters a little bit, but lately, I think TNA had been picking up, and I am not entirely sure if there's anything to go further expand beyond this now that Scott is gone. but they had Jordan Grace as the TNA Women's Knockouts champion participate in the Royal Rumble match. Now they did this before with Mickey James, but as the then Impact World Women's
But
title, but
but
that was when Mickey was not in exactly a signed TNA
yes.
slash Impact roster member. She was working sort of on a freelance deal. So technically speaking, they just brought her in as a one off.
Yes.
Uh, Jordan Grace is a contracted TNA wrestler that the biggest wrestling company in the world asked her to participate in one of their biggest pay-per-views in the calendar year.
Yep.
Very impressive. I love the moment when she and Naomi looked at each other and they were like, and it was like, I literally just saw this 2 weeks before at Hard to Kill, and it was like such an endearing moment. They're like hugging each other and then they start punching each other in the head.
Uh-huh.
Um, Jordan was very impressive in the Royal Rumble. Didn't obviously wasn't in there for that long, but she
No.
had a good showing and pretty much impressed. I think a lot of people at WWE, like I wouldn't be surprised if they open the doors for her in the future. But
Yeah.
yeah, she has been TNA Knockouts champion since Hard to Kill, dethroning then Trinity slash Naomi, who obviously went back to WWE.
Of course.
And since then has defended against Tasha Steele, Saya Brookside, Giselle Shaw, which I was a little surprised because I thought Giselle, at least at this point in her career, has really deserved a run as a TNA Knockouts champion. But since her losing at No Surrender, hasn't been on any TNA programming lately. I'm not entirely sure her status with that. But yeah, it's almost like a bit of a holding pattern right now with Jordan. She's a reliable person to build the division around.
She's the
As
face
of
of the division.
Ace of the division, no doubt. She's been on.
Yeah.
She was recently on cover of the PWI magazine. Obviously, the Royal Rumble thing. As of this recording, she is scheduled to face. She's scheduled to defend her title at Rebellion against Steph the Lander. The one half of the death match King and Queen with
Mm-hmm.
her friend Matt Cardona. So Steph the Lander had made some appearances on TNA before. She's back now. And I think they had to bring her in at this point because the roster is kind of like there's Jordan, and then there's almost like everybody else since Trinity left. You know, they had Tasha Steele. She's, of course, is a former champion, but lately she was in a couple of matches with Saya Brookside, who you mentioned a lot of people who are under 18 or just around early 2021. Saya
Mm-hmm.
Brookside is like 18, and she actually beat Tasha Steeles the first time, and then Tasha went back and beat her again. So they had this sort of rubber match
Yep.
where the winner was supposed to face Jordan, but they ended up like counting themselves out, both of them. And so there was a triple threat match they had recently at Sacrifice. But yeah, other than that, it's like it's either Jordan or whoever else. But there are some interesting developments with other women on the roster, and one of them, obviously, I want to talk about is Ash by Elegance, formerly known as Dana Brooke. This presentation was like, I think what TNA did was they looked at the whole Emma Lena situation. Ironically, Emma was a former tag team partner to Dana Brooke, and they looked at that and it's like, okay, Vince gave up way too early on this. I think we can work this way around.
Mm-hmm.
Who can we pick that could like be some kind of mouthpiece for Ashley when she comes in? Oh, I don't know. Let's pick this guy George Iceman, who's some former promoter up in Canada for some indie promotion. He's got this good voice. Let's not give him a name. Let's just call him the personal concierge, and then he'll just do this over the top presentation. It's like, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming, and now I like to present Ash by Elegance. And then they have this music, and then she comes out like dressed in these like high valued wardrobe, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
drinking $5,000 glasses of champagne. uh it was like they made a whole big deal about her having her first match and then her third match, and then yeah, but I think I'm liking the presentation. It's not as wild and wacky as like the Tony Storm thing, but it's kind of a fun little like TNA thing where they just have and obviously they're using Dana Brooke, former Dana Brooke, way better than she did in WWE.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
um,
she never got a chance in
never got a
WWE.
chance. She's getting a
They
chance now.
they always treated her like an embarrassment in WWE. They always treated her like she wasn't improving, or like that she was just there to be made fun of or be somebody's lackey. And she never got the opportunity to show that she was getting better, and she was getting better. And yeah, I thought it was a good move for her to come to TNA and do this complete makeover and yeah, be this character that I think she's pulling off pretty well. And yeah, and I think she's gotten a lot better in the ring as expected. Um
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Masha Slamovich earlier. She's obviously doing some very strong work on TNA. Former Knockouts Tag Team Champion with Killer Kelly.
yes.
And speaking of Killer Kelly, she's going to be taking, as I understand it, some time off to, I believe, shoot a movie.
Mhm.
There was some mistake made online earlier, whether she
Yeah.
had left TNA, but she didn't.
Yeah, there was some misinformation going around about her contract being up, but apparently she's contracted for like another year, and or at least the end of this year. And but yeah, she's another one alongside Masha Slamovich who is just great.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think she has gotten so much better in the ring. She's always been pretty good, but having the matches that she had with Masha and then teaming with her, and the stuff she's been doing on the indies as a part of Pro Wrestling Revolution,
Yeah.
Revolver, sorry, Pro Wrestling Revolver, and yeah, I think she is one of those names that is going to keep getting better and be a star in the making that people are going to want around.
Yeah. Masha has been presented, very credibly. The only thing that I find just a little bit odd is they put her on, and it's as though she can only speak Russian. But if
Well,
you watch Masha in other venues, she's clearly understands and speaks fluent English. And it's like every
uh,
time Masha just opens her mouth, says a bunch of Russian stuff, and then it's like we're all supposed to
yeah.
understand what she said. And then Kelly
Well,
is just like,
and it's the same thing as like when they were when Lana was doing this in WWE. Like we know that
eventually they
she
phase that out, but this I don't see any of this
but
phasing
but
anytime soon.
then you see Masha's amazing promo that she cut on Shayna on GCW,
It's like, yeah,
and
it's like you
she's
watch two things. It's like
very clearly raised in Brooklyn, uh, which she was. Um, but yeah, Masha rules. I love Masha. I love Killer Kelly. Um,
but yes,
another
yeah, another group. I mean, we're kind of delving into like the knockouts tag team division here, and like I mentioned the issue earlier about like trying to book a credible women's tag division. You either
mhm,
have you either it seems that every time you either have the champions and then like one other team.
yep,
And I think in this case it's still happening. The only other teams that I am aware of are Decay, who at Hard to Kill came back as Decay after a stint as this sort of like alter ego between Jessica and Courtney Rush. So they changed back into Decay because they did a
yes,
storyline about how they were trying to rediscover themselves in the undead realm or whatever.
uh-huh,
And also the new team, who are the current champions of Spitfire, consisting of Toronto's own Jody Threat and England's Danny Luna, who was signed by TNA. Interestingly enough, they didn't sign her friends, Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster, who I believe are still on the indie circuit. Maybe it's something to do with like being in England or whatever. But she's also
Yeah, who knows?
But yeah, they signed her, and then they paired her with Jodie Fett, and then they put her together as this team called Spitfire after they won the tag titles. So
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, it's them and it's Decay. Um, Kelly's gonna be away for a while, so there's no so Masha's not going for that. So I'm like, what other teams are there? And
Hmm.
it's like it's kind of hard to tell because it's
Well,
like,
who else is on the roster?
well, they did this. Well, they did this match, which probably would annoy you because the concept is so silly. The 8-4-1 match where they had two teams of four women in an 8 women tag. The
Hmm.
winning team would then turn into a fatal four-way, and then
I
the winner of that.
they've done this before.
Yeah, it's like so they
They did
originally did.
this with the men last year.
Yeah, they did it. They did. So the women in that match, other than the ones I already mentioned, was okay. Let me try to remember. I mentioned Steph Delander. I mentioned. Oh yeah. So interestingly enough, they put DK in this match, but they put Jessica on one side, and they put Havoc on one side, and they put Rosemary on the other. They even put the Knockouts Tag Team Champions in this match, and they put Danny Luna also on one side and Jodie Fett on the other side. And I was thinking to myself, why are you putting the current Knockouts Tag Team Champions in a match for contention of the Knockouts World Championship? And the other women
Um,
I'm trying to remember was I think it was Alicia and
oh yeah, she's still there.
Masha was in there. Yeah, so Alicia, yeah. I will say this. I do like Alicia's repackaging as like the sort of fourth wheel behind this system group with
Oh,
Moose, Eddie Edwards, and Brian Myers, even though
her character has always been Eddie Edwards' wife.
yes.
That's been
And
her
now it's
character from day one, and it
yeah,
still is.
you make a good point actually. It's just like I hadn't really thought about it that way before. I tried to think of her as like doing something independent, but I'm like, no, wait a minute. She's been back with back with Eddie for like a year now. Like she turned heel along with him, and then now she's in a
Yeah,
heel faction with him and Moose and Myers. And it's like, okay, she's not really contending for any titles. She's just like the backup support. It's like because she's the
yeah,
woman and the guys can't touch her and whatever. Right.
yeah.
Even though she's taken like bumps from like Frankie Kazarian before. So
Yes.
um
So I would say that TNA has a good bunch of talent. They
yeah.
just got to figure out what they're doing with them
I
because
feel like they need to bring someone in at this point because as I mentioned, it's Jordan and the rest almost. Like a couple of them are away from television for a while. So it's like,
yes.
you know,
Well,
I mean,
and
so my
somebody
idea is this. So my idea is this. They brought in Hammerstone and they signed Hammerstone. So that's they actually added somebody to the male roster, which I think could be beneficial down the road. You know, um, I really think they should bring in Camille
that's what I
because
was gonna say.
I was gonna say because the
Yeah.
Camille just finished up their time with NWA,
Well,
and people
it's been a while now. She's just taking a break.
yeah, and it's like, oh, who do I sign with? Who am I going with? AEW,
She's
WWE?
been teasing it. She's been teasing it since February.
Yeah, and I'm like, you should look at the third option where you can be a bigger fish in a smaller pond because I would want to see
Yeah,
Camille versus Jordan Grace at like Slammiversary or something like that.
yeah, and I think that she would definitely it would be the right choice for her to go to TNA right now, because all the other rosters are just so large,
Right.
and I feel like she would be a main event player in TNA right now. I think it really depends on what she. I think it depends on what she wants to do. Does she want to? Does she want to carry a division, or does she want money? Because you're not going to get the money you can get from WWE or AEW in TNA, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of like a deciding factor in a lot of people who don't sign with TNA is the money. Um, Some people, like Hammerstone, for example, are happy there, and it's not about the money to him, which is fine. If it is about the money for her, I don't think she'll go to Impact TNA. Sorry, but I think she would be a great fit there.
Yeah. And with that, I mean, there's a lot of growth potential there with TNA. Obviously, I mean, money aside, there's like definitely like a lot of space there for people who are looking for a third option if they're not just looking at WWE and AEW.
Hmm.
Also, TNA still has like working relationships with New Japan, for example, so that
Well, and
opens.
there's a lot of other options outside of America,
Yeah,
um, which people don't put into account. I think when somebody like Camille, for example, is available, maybe she would want to go to Japan. Maybe she would want to go to Mexico. You never know. Um, do I think that she would kill it in Stardom? Of course. Do I think she would kill it anywhere in Japan? I mean, there's a lot of Japanese federations out there for men and women, and I would say Stardom is probably the most prominent. But there's also Tokyo Joshi Pro. There's Ice Ribbon, which is not as prominent, but yeah, there's a lot of federations out there, and I think it for somebody like Camille, it all comes down to what she wants to accomplish. Does she want to get a big deal, or does she want to do something different?
yeah. Did, did you want to add anything about like Stardom, New Japan, that kind of thing? I mean, I
Um,
don't know much about it myself, but we
well, I
mentioned
mean,
Julia earlier.
there's just what's out there that we
Yeah,
kind of know about. I mean, there was that whole thing, I believe, what was it, end of January, where the original founder of Stardom uh, left the company, and now a lot of the talent that were very loyal to him are leaving. Julia has left, um, and along with her, some of their bigger stars like Utami Hayashishita. I don't remember how to say that, but Mirai, who's a big star over there, Yuzuki and Mai Sakurai, all are leaving Stardom. Those are all big names for Stardom, and supposedly the original founder of Stardom, Rossi Agawa,
mhm.
is starting a new federation where he expects Julia to be the face of the brand for to get it started, and then she is at some point going to go to WWE.
Yeah,
Because apparently this guy Agawa had some kind of strange relationship with all the other federations to the point where he was kind of the reason why Stardom was not working with AEW. Um, because there was multiple times that AEW wanted to work with Stardom, considering they're already working with New Japan, and it didn't happen, and we didn't understand why. Um, Now we kind of have an idea because ever since Stardom has been under new management, there's been Stardom talent on ROH pretty consistently.
yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up because I'm just looking at the Super Card of Honor card, and there's
Yes.
actually a Stardom showcase match with 6 women, May, Sierra, and the team of Mina, Shirakawa, and Maika, known as the Empress
Yes.
Nexus Venus. They're gonna face the team of Tam Nakano and Queen's Quest, consisting of someone named Saya Kamitani and a girl named Azumi, or known as AZM, who
Uh, Azumi,
who
yeah.
started wrestling. This is insane. I'm looking at a photo of her. She started wrestling at age 11. So there's a
Hmm.
picture of her at 11 years old in the ring.
Yes.
She's
So
born in 2002. That is
yes.
crazy.
So that is something that happens a lot in Japanese culture. So
Yeah.
Japanese women's wrestling, especially, they start very early and usually
Yeah. I'm
finish
just
up very early.
I'm just wondering
Um,
if AZM, was she the girl that faced Kenny Omega in that match like
no,
way early in his career?
no, that
She
girl
did
is not
Kenny fought a 9-year-old girl or something.
that
Like,
girl is not a wrestler as far as I
like
know. But yes, all of these talent. So Micah is the current world champion over there. She was formerly part of what there was a group she was formerly a part of. She was formerly in the same group as Julia, called Donna Del Mondo,
yeah, yeah, that one.
which was the group that Julia founded.
Right.
And Julia, of course, is gone now, and Micah is basically the new face over there. Um, and then you have somebody, Mina Shirakawa was formerly in a group with Mariah May and Zaya Brookside. Um, they were called Club Venus.
Mm.
They recently changed the name to Empress Nexus Venus, as you mentioned, which she is, of course, still a member. And yes, Mina Shirakawa is one of my favorite wrestlers over there. Micah is great. Um, she is absolutely killing it. She won the tournament to crown a new champion. Um, of course, you still have Mayu Iwatani still over there. She is the current IWGP Women's Champion and has been since she won that belt from Mercedes Moné. Um, right now, there's no word on whether she is going to join the people who have left because of Rossi Agala's departure. Um, but I highly recommend Stardom to anybody who hasn't watched it. Um, the one downside to Stardom is that there's currently no English commentary on a regular basis. Every once in a while, um, Chris Charlton from New Japan will do solo commentary, but it's very rare. Um, so I go into a lot of Stardom shows just expecting to watch wrestling and not really knowing what the commentary is saying. Sometimes they have shows with no commentary at all, which is fine. Uh, but yes, there is still a lot of great talent over there, and the 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 effect that Ogawa leaving is having already is, I think, playing a factor in um some things that are happening over there. But um I think that now that AEW and New Japan are working with Stardom more directly, you're going to see a lot more of these talents, and you're going to be a lot more familiar with a lot of these talents, like Mina Shirakawa, like Micah, like Azumi, like Dark Starlight Kid, who is another great talent. She's a masked wrestler that I think a lot of people should check out. Um, Shuri Kondo is another one who is absolutely amazing, and I think she has a match coming up over the weekend. Um, I can't. There's so much wrestling going on this weekend. It's so hard for me to remember all of it. But yeah, there is a lot of great talent over there still, and I think you're going to see more of those wrestlers that are leaving in more prominent roles as well. Um, Yashishida is one of those talents. She is uh, absolutely amazing. Um, And I've said it before. I can't say enough of how much I love Julia. Julia is probably one of my favorite women's wrestlers in the world. Every match that I've seen of hers has been amazing. Um, Last year, during Stardom's G1, which is called the 5-Star Grand Prix, she had a great match with Mariah May that people should check out. It was one of my favorite matches that I've ever seen in Stardom, and I mean, I had already was really like a big fan of Mariah May already because I had seen her work before, but that match made me like her even more. Um, but yeah, there is so much talent, and I would say that the one thing that Stardom has trouble with is building like outside of Japan audiences because you're not really able to follow the stories going on over there because there's no commentary. But having it be more involved with New Japan and them having American commentary, of course, or English commentary, um, definitely helps. Um, I think that you're going to see a lot more of these ladies coming over, and yeah, I would say that just look out for more of these talents and get more familiar with because a lot of these talents because you're going to see a lot more of them as we're seeing in ROH. And yeah, I want more people to get into Stardom. I want more people to be interested in Joshi wrestling because I think it's one of the best types of wrestling out there. Um, these ladies, they kill it every single time they get in the ring, and some of the best women's matches I've ever seen. Some of the best matches I've ever seen. I don't really get to talk about them as frequently because I don't know a lot of people that watch Stardom other than people I interact with on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Um, but yeah, I am looking forward to this showcase match as you mentioned on the Super Card of Honor show. I'm looking forward to um, whatever else we get with this relationship, I guess. Because Tony Khan is very, very passionate about it. They had Stardom's president literally like backstage, like days after Rossi Agawa was gone. So it's very clear that this is going to be a thing that is going to be more prominent, and I think Mercedes is going to play a big part in that as well, because I'm sure she still wants to go over there and work at some point. I'm sure she wants to have a rematch with Mayu. Um, if they can make it happen, she still wants that Julia match. She was supposed to have that Julia match. They were supposed to have that match for the strong openweight women's championship that never happened. Um, she just couldn't get healthy in time. Um, so now Stephanie Vicar is the champion. She's of course from CMLL, and if you've seen any of her matches, she is also a very good wrestler. She's more prominently in CMLL, but she also does a lot of the American New Japan shows. Um, so yeah, I just want more people to see Stardom. And I would say that the one thing that you have to get used to if you watch Stardom is that if you don't know Japanese, you're not going to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And just enjoy the wrestling.
Yeah, just enjoy the wrestling. I'm sure down the road we will enjoy whatever it is that women's wrestling has to offer across all the promotions. Um, just to kind of wrap things up, Mike. Anything else you wanted to add? I think you mentioned maybe some brief notes about WrestleMania coming up this weekend.
Um, I
I
mean,
mean,
we if we want, we could just give our quick predictions without really going into too much detail. Um, it's the biggest WrestleMania ever, WrestleMania
oh,
40.
really? Yes. Well, it is
Uh,
quite a milestone. 40 years of WrestleMania. I
and
mean,
the
and
very first WrestleMania with no Vince McMahon at
well,
all.
no McMahon at all. I mean, unless you count Triple H as a McMahon by marriage, but not. I mean, kind
Yeah.
of, but not really. I mean, Hunter's like done things differently enough that we've noticed like very obvious changes in the programming. Um, I don't. I think I'll just stay away from talk about the main event or the big thing with all
Well,
this
I mean,
talk.
we
But
we have gone into detail on so many occasions how I feel about the main
yeah,
event.
I think we can definitely save any in-depth analysis post Mania and to look into that because
Yes. So
definitely plenty of time for that.
so as far as all the matches go, as of right now, we have 7 matches on night 1 and 6 matches on night 2. Um I don't know if this is official, but this is what shows on Wikipedia. Of course, we talked about Becky and Rhea. I think Rhea is retaining. I don't think Becky needs to win. And I think it would be a big feather in Rhea's cap to not only defend here, but against Becky.
Mm. I mean, let's talk about this. Very convoluted six-pack tag team ladder match for the undisputed WWE tag team titles. You've got the
Yeah,
Judgment Day defending against DIY, the New Day versus A Town Down, Austin Theory, Grayson Waller versus New Catch Republic, and the Awesome Truth. Now,
yes.
there was a little rumor circulating on the socials that Theory and Waller might be pulled from this match.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
they were
I don't.
mentioned on Raw, so I don't think that's going to
Okay,
happen. But
maybe that's not
I
happening.
mean, unless something
But
happens
there
on
is. I mean,
SmackDown,
obviously, there is like precedent for a surprise team to enter a WrestleMania ladder match. I'm thinking when the Hardys returned couple of years ago,
yeah,
and
33.
I know a certain team that just became free agents as of April 1st, but I don't know if they've ever. I don't know if making the jump from TNA to WWE would be something that people
Uh,
were expecting, but who knows? That would be a
I
major.
fully
Be a major
I fully expect Motor City Machine Guns to stay freelancers. I don't know if they're going to sign anywhere.
yeah. But anyway, we
Um,
were talking offline about the outcome of this funny tag
so
match.
so Michael Cole emphasized that a winner that winners can only be determined once all the championships have been taken down.
Right.
And there's 2 sets of championships
Yeah.
technically.
hmm
They've been unified since I freaking forget how long.
When the
But
Usos won them from like Orton and Riddle or something. I
yeah,
remember.
so we talked about offline before even coming on here that I think what's going to happen is that Awesome Truth are going to win the Raw belts and somebody else is going to win the SmackDown belts. Whether it's our Truth shenanigans, which I fully expect will happen. Something like, oh, our Truth climbs the ladder when nobody's around and he only grabs the red belts. And then while him and Miz are arguing, or like, oh, why didn't you grab the other belts? Somebody else climbs the ladder and grabs the blue belts.
It almost
Um,
reminds me of that like pandemic era Money in the Bank match on top of the WWE headquarters when like
when
I think the
Otis
finals like
caught,
Corbin and AJ were like
mhm.
holding the briefcase and they both
and it
dropped it into
and it
Otis's
fell and Otis caught it.
no,
Yeah.
Otis's hand.
Yeah, well, this is not that, but it's still just
It's
as
not that,
bad.
but it's
Yeah,
like
so if that is the case, if that is what we expect will happen, right? I think it would have to be a SmackDown team, and if it has to be a SmackDown team, I the only team I would go with is New Catch Republic. Um, because I
yeah.
don't see any other team. I mean, not like the draft even matters, but because it hasn't for a very long time. Um, Jimmy versus Jay. So I honestly think this match could go either way, but I have a feeling that because Jay has been on the significant singles run, they would throw Jimmy a bone here because Jay has had Jay has had the significant run. He won the tag titles with somebody else. How dare he? Other than his twin brother. So I think Jimmy's gonna win this.
Yeah, I remember when we talked about this before that I had predicted that Naomi was gonna come in, help her husband and do a heel turn. But now that she's lumped in with Bianca and Jade, I'm
And
not
that
entirely
solo
sure.
and that solo still doesn't have a match, so he'll
Yeah.
just he'll just be there. So yeah, I think Jimmy's gonna win. Since you mentioned Naomi, let's talk about that match. I don't expect Damage Control to win this match at all. Not even a chance.
Yeah. Like, yeah, Jade on one side, you packaged her so well and did the whole thing on SmackDown. It's like, why
Yep.
would you have yeah.
And Dakota will probably take the pin after eating finishers from everybody.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Uh, so next is the match that is so annoying. Rey
Yeah,
Mysterio and
yeah.
Dragon Lee versus Santos Escobar and Dominic Mysterio. This match came out of freaking nowhere just because Ray and Santos had a match where everybody in their respective groups was banned from ringside. So Santos was like, "Oh, let me call up Dominic because that'll fuck with Ray." Which is just like they haven't. Ray has not mentioned Dominic since last March. Like, what are we doing? Last April. What are we doing? Why are we going back here again just to have this match? And why isn't Andrade in this match?
Yeah, he is in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal along with people like Chad Gable and I believe Nakamura and like whoever the hell else.
Ricochet, Bronson
Ricochet,
Reed,
Braun. It's like, the leftovers being thrown into the.
and that match is on SmackDown and not on Mania at all.
Yeah, I mean, at first I thought the Jade six women tag match was going to be stuck on the SmackDown, but no, oh no, they bumped it to Mania. I'm like, oh, okay, that's at
Well,
least
of
a.
course they did. They want Jade on Mania.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
But I'm like,
I I think I mean Ray got the win on Dominic last year, so I wouldn't be surprised if Santos and Dominic won this match.
yeah, I mean, to be honest, the rest of these matches are just like at this point we discussed
Uh,
it length, and it's
yeah.
like,
So that leaves the last match that we haven't discussed on night one, which is Gunther versus Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental title. So I'm very up in the air about this match. On one hand, is it time for Gunther's reign to end? And on the other hand, is Sami Zayn the guy that should do it? So I think that Sami should win because yes, he got his WrestleMania moment last year when him and Kevin won the tag titles in the main event. But he is on this journey to win a championship on his own and beating the most unbeatable champion who shows up every week is something that you could put in like a feather in his cap that nobody else can have. And I think the argument of it should be Chad Gable. Chad Gable has not mentioned the title at all. He has only said that he wants to get his hands on Gunther because Gunther made his kid cry.
Yeah.
It is not about the title. It is about getting that win. And he can get that win after Gunther loses the title.
Yeah, like Gunther's already the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion in history. They've already established that record. And frankly, the way they were teasing Judgment Day versus Imperium stuff a few weeks ago makes me think that, okay, if Damian Priest somehow cashes in, becomes World Heavyweight Champion, no
Yes.
matter who he cashed in on, whether it's Drew or Seth, whoever, like they're gonna have to have a new feud. Probably, I would expect a new feud at some point.
Yes.
And Gunther
Okay.
standing right there, free of the Intercontinental Championship, is a top contender already right there.
Yes. So without really going into detail, I think that Rock and Roman are winning the tag match. That's all I'm gonna say about it. I
Yeah,
fully expect that that's what's gonna happen.
yeah, okay.
All right. So night 2, LA Knight versus AJ Styles. This match
I really don't care. I really don't care
this
about this
this
match.
match kind of just came out of nowhere. AJ Styles literally flew to Australia just to hit LA Knight with a chair. And that's been the I don't even know why he did that. Mainly because I don't watch SmackDown. But I don't understand why he did it. I don't understand why this is the match and why
I
LA
think
Knight is
it's
not
stemming from Elimination Chamber or like just
the
residual crap from the world.
qualifiers.
Yeah, or maybe they eliminated each other in the
No, AJ
elimination.
wasn't in. AJ wasn't
Oh,
in.
right, right. Oh, you know what? I remember. I think AJ snuck in, cost LA Knight the
Yeah,
match in the
that's what I
chamber.
said.
Okay. Oh, sorry, sorry.
He flew all the way to
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Australia.
Oh my God, sorry, I'm blanking
He
out.
flew all the way to Australia just to hit LA Knight with a chair.
Right, because he cost him the qualifier. And
I
residual stuff from like the Royal Rumble where they didn't really
Yeah.
trust each other.
I
So
think LA Knight's gonna win this match. I mean, you got to give him something, right? Um,
yeah, the only interesting thing, to be honest, I mean, I don't really care about this.
not
Like,
shocking. Nobody should.
yeah,
It's not. It's not
the
interesting.
they had LA Knight like booked him very well, and then they just kind of like let him go, and it was like I kind of lost interest, which is bad. But my only interest in this match is like AJ teased that he's gonna come out with some new music, and I'm curious about
Yeah.
what that's gonna be.
Um, Again, without going too much into this, I've seen a lot of people talk online about how LA Knight has lost a lot of steam because The Rock is around. And LA Knight is basically his whole entire shtick is just The Rock. I don't I don't know if that's true. Um I think LA Knight is a great talent regardless of catchphrases. Um and comparing him to The Rock is not fair to him. I think he's a great talent who deserves to have opportunities. I thought he was going to be in the U.S. title match here, but um, yeah, I think he's going to win. The next match is another match I don't care about at all. Is a 6-man Philadelphia street fight, which was made official literally today, Monday. Um, the Pride of Bobby Lashley, Angelo Dawkins, and Montez Ford versus the Final Testament, Karrion Kross, Akam, and Razar. We
I
predict
don't care. I'm sorry.
we predicted this match. We didn't predict the stipulation, but we predicted this match, and it's
Uh,
happening. Who
uh-huh.
cares? Does it matter who wins? It really doesn't.
Yeah.
But I think Bobby Lashley's team is going to win.
Look,
Um,
I think for the sake of your mental health, we should just avoid predicting the main event between Roman and Cody. It's like
uh,
the only thing I will say is this, because it's probably gonna be bloodline rules. They're gonna have everybody involved. This is gonna be the most overbooked finish in the
oh
history
yeah,
of like WrestleMania. It's like
This is not going to be a wrestling
everybody,
match.
like I'm even expecting Mrs. Rhodes, I mean Mama Rhodes to be involved in this. Like that's his wife.
I'm sure she'll be
Every,
sitting front row or something.
yeah, like everybody, Brandy's gonna be there, the baby, you know,
Sure.
every fucking whatever bloodline people, like, you know, Ava might show up, you know, I mean, come on, at this point, even Cena and Stone Cold Steve Austin have been teased. So like
Yeah, who knows? So next we have the unfortunate triple threat for the United States Championship. Logan Paul defending against Randy Orton and Kevin Owens. Um, I I I don't know who's going to win, but I have a feeling I'm going to be disappointed.
maybe we should just base it on who actually needs this title. Like, obviously not Logan Paul.
No.
I don't think Randy Orton needs this title. He's already won this title. I mean, the only one who I feel could get some kind of rub off like winning a championship is Kevin.
Well, and it also give Kevin Owens the payback that he deserves um against Logan Paul. He deserves to win it here. So I mean I would want him to win, but I'm not sure that he is. I mean I'm just gonna say it just because it'll do better in my head for Kevin Owens to win. Um, the next match is the SmackDown Women's Championship. We kind of talked about this a little already, but I think Bayley is winning the belt. And that is Seth versus Drew.
Well, I kind of made my own prediction. I think Damian Priest.
So yes, so I am kind of on the level with you on that. I fully expect that Drew is going to win this belt, and then Damian is going to cash in. Considering that the ladder match is on night one, people are going to suspect that Damian won't be around, and after Drew wins and gets his quote unquote moment that he deserves, he will get cashed in on. And if Drew is sticking around, then they can make that a feud down the line. So yeah, I expect that will be a fun match. Considering both guys are on fire right now. And then you have the main event, which we've talked about at nauseum. Cody needs to win. If Cody doesn't win, I don't watch SmackDown. Simple as that.
Yeah, I know, dude. I just told you to not talk about it for the sake of your mental well-being.
That's it. I'm done.
Okay,
I said
fine.
what I needed to say.
Okay, fine. Once whatever happens, happens, and then we will make our decisions on what to watch in the future after this. Anyway, with that, that is the end of our analysis of the state of women's wrestling and a brief WrestleMania prediction.
Yes.
And once again, please watch the wrestling you want to watch and not necessarily what people are telling you to watch. And just WrestleMania is this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. In between, every other promotion is trying to squeeze in time in Philly. So keep an eye out for that
Yes.
stuff.
There's all the collective shows
Yeah.
as well as a US Stardom show. There's all different events going on around the weekend. So watch whatever makes you happy. You don't have to watch WrestleMania if you don't want to. You can watch all the wrestling that's going on. But yes, make sure to go to our linktree / going over big time podcast with all of the ways to support us, to watch and listen to this show. Follow us on social medias. And yes, that is going to do it for us.
Yep. Thank you for listening and have a good day.